Okay, hello everybody. This is a new session of the sessions. Today we will discuss together. We talk about programming paradigms. Let's together have overview about what is the programming paradigm. What are programming paradigms? For sure, it's not a new topic for all of us, but let's refresh our knowledge together. Maybe we found new paradigms. We know about them, but we don't use them. And I will try to give an example how to use this paradigm in our daily coding. Okay. In general, what are programming paradigms? Programming paradigms are a way to classify programming language based on their features. Each language can be classified into multiple paradigms. Again, what is programming paradigms? Programming paradigm is a style, as we mentioned, it's a way of programming. Some languages make it easy to write in some paradigms, but not others. Programming paradigm can also be turned as a method to solve some problems or to do some tasks. Paradigm is an approach to solve problem using some programming language. Or also we can say it is a method to solve a problem using a tool and techniques. That are available to us to follow some approaches. There are a lot of programming language that are know about them, and they follow some strategies, but the paradigm is different from language to another. The common programming paradigms is mainly two. It's imperative or declarative. For the imperative program paradigm, it includes procedure or object-oriented, and the declarative programming, it includes functional, logic, or database programming. A small hint about the history of programming paradigms. Different approaches to programming have developed over time. It starts with the low-level programming paradigms, which is the machine code, which directly represent the instructions as a sequence of numbers. And then the assembly language, where the machine instructions are presented by memory address, can be given symbolic labels. Let's start with the imperative programming paradigm. What is the imperative programming? It's one of the oldest programming paradigms, as we mentioned. It features a close relation to machine architecture. It works by changing the program states through assignment statements. Actually, the imperative programming, it performs step-by-step task by changing the state. The main focus is on how to achieve the goal. The paradigm consists of several statements, and after execution of all, the result is stored. Let's say the imperative programming is a style of programming in which there is a sequence of statements. This sequence of statements that change the state of the program. First, you must understand what is the state. What is the state of the program? For example, of a state switch, the switch can be can have two status. It can either be on or can be either off. In a program state are values that we can identify this state. In this example, we change the value of a variable in steps before we print the final state of the variables. In each line, I change the state of the variable and then I print the final state. Another example, in this example, the program adds the variables together and assign them to the total variable. The the state of the total variable changed from 0 at the beginning in line 2, in the beginning of the program in line 2, and to be 6 before the puts function in line 5. So in this way, I change the status of the variable, okay, using step by step. This is overall information about the imperative, and let's go deeper into the divided types of imperative paradigms. But before we move forward, we need to talk a little bit about the advantage and disadvantage of this paradigm. The advantage of this paradigm, it's very simple to implement, and it contains loops and variables. We can use loops and variables. A disadvantage, it might be a complex problem cannot be solved using this paradigm, less efficient and less productive, and parallel programming is not possible using imperative programming. As we said, the imperative programming is divided into three broad categories. At beginning, I forget to mention about procedure. I said object-oriented. I forget to mention about parallel, but it's three categories. It's procedure programming, object-oriented programming, parallel processing approach. Let's take these paradigms one by one. The procedure programming paradigm, which is also one of the imperative programming, it allows splitting these instructions into procedures. This paradigm emphasizes on procedure in terms of underlying machine model. Actually, there is no difference between procedure and imperative approach so far. It's actually the same. It has the ability to reuse the code, and it was born at the time when it was in use because of its reusability. A great example of procedure would be the well-known for us, the loop. The for loop, the main purpose is to cause side effects, and it doesn't return value. So for procedure programming, when we write a procedure code, we don't expect to return a value. It causes a side effect, but doesn't return a value. In this example, we have used a simple for loop to find the summation of the first 10 natural numbers. So we just did a loop, and we just find the summation of the first 10 numbers. The advantage of procedure programming, it's simple. It's easier way to keep track of program flow. Sorry, I hear someone wants to ask something. Or? Okay. Okay, the advantage of
hello.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, we just disconnected and connected back. Sorry for this.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine.
Okay.
The advantage of procedure programming, let's say again, it's simple, and it's an easier way to keep track of program flow. It has the ability to be strongly modular or structured. It needs less memory, and it's efficient and effective. This is example of language that support procedure programming, but not limit to these languages, but for example, C and C++, and Java and Pascal. So we can use procedure, we can write procedure programming code with a lot of languages, but this is just example of languages that support the procedure programming paradigms. Let's move to object-oriented programming paradigm. It's one of the imperative programming. Of course, all of us know about the object-oriented, but since it's one of our paradigm, so let's talk a little bit about object-oriented programming paradigm. Object-oriented is the most popular programming paradigm because of its unique advantage, like modularity of the code and the ability to directly associate real world business problem in terms of the code. In object-oriented programming, the program is written as a collection of classes and objects which are meant for communication. The smallest and the basic entity is object. All kind of computation is performed on the objects only. In object-oriented programming, we more emphasize is on data rather than procedure. It can be handle almost all kind of real-life problem which are today's scenarios. This is some key of object-oriented programming, like a class, abstraction, encapsulation, inheritance, polymorphism. I don't need to talk more about object-oriented because, of course, we are familiar with object-oriented programming, and we are familiar with the three angles of the object-oriented programming. I just wanted to give a small example about the object-oriented code. In this example, we have a class the addition class that has two status, sum and num, which are initialized to be 0. As you see in initialize method, we defined sum and num to be 0. We also have a method add values, which returns the sum of numbers. We have another class, the sum class. We have created an object. It's called obj of addition class. Then we have initialized the num to be 10, and we have called add values method to get the sum. Advantage of object-oriented programming: it's data security, inheritance, code reusability, flexible, and abstraction is also present. Example of languages that support object-oriented programming paradigm: C++, Python, Ruby, Java. The last paradigm in the imperative paradigm is parallel processing approach. It's the processing of programming instruction by dividing them among multiple processes. The parallel processing system allows many processors to run a program in less time by dividing them up. It poses many numbers of processors with the objective of running program in less time by dividing. Instead of writing one function or one code to do one thing, we divide this into multiple processors. Each processor responsible for completing or finishing a specific task. The advantage of the parallel processing, it speeds up the performance, often used in AI, artificial intelligence. It makes it easy to solve problems since this approach seems to be like a divide method. Some languages that support parallel processing approach like C or C++. Now we finished the imperative programming, and let's move to declarative programming paradigm. In declarative programming, it's a style of building programming that express the logic of computation without talking about the control flow. So in declarative, in general, we focus more on the logic. What is the declarative programming? Declarative programming is a programming paradigm in which the programmer defines what need to be accomplished without defining how it needs to be implemented. In other words, the approach focuses on what need to be achieved instead of instruction how to achieve it. It often considers program as a series of some logic. As we said, we focus more on logic. It may simplify writing programs. The focus is what need to be done rather than how to do it. The declarative programming paradigm is divided into three broad categories. It's logic programming, functional programming, database processing approach, or database programming. Let's start with the logic programming paradigm. Um, the logic programming paradigm, it takes the declarative approach to problem solving. It's based on a formal logic. The logic programming paradigm is a type of um, paradigm which is largely based on the formal logic. Any problem written in logic programming language is set of sentence in logic form, expressing facts and rules about some problem's domain. The logic programming paradigm isn't made up of instructions, rather than it's made up of facts and clauses. It uses everything we know about logic and ignore everything about instructions. Not 100% ignore, but we focus more on the logic. To give an idea, let's check this logic together. For example, we say that the first line says that Mustafa is kids 1 and kids 2 father in line 1 and in line number 2 and line number 3, and mom is kids 1 and kids 2 mother in line 4 and line 5. Now, if someone asks a question like who is the father of kids 1 and kids 2, or who is the mother of kids 1 and kids 2, we can teach the computer to answer this question using a logic programming, like we did in line 8 and line 9. We ask who is the mother of x, kids 2, so x equal mom. What is the advantage of logic programming? It's easy to implement the code. Debugging in logical programming, it's easy since it's structured using true-false statement. We can develop the program quickly using logic programming. It should support special forms of knowledge such meta level or high order knowledge. The second paradigm in this category, the functional programming paradigm. The functional paradigm has its root in mathematical and its language independent. The key principle of this paradigm is the execution of series of mathematical functions. You compose your program of short functions. You write a short function to achieve your goal. The function don't modify any values outside the scope of that function, and the functions themselves are not affected by any values outside their scope. So each function is scoped for themselves. In this example, for example, we have used the method dot floor and the method mass dot square root. It's a mathematical function to solve our problem. We can solve this problem without using a built-in Ruby mathematical function, but to run the code efficiently, it's recommended to use a built-in function. While the language supports function solves our problem, so it's better to use the built-in functions. Also, the number is scoped to the function inside the is prime function. We have a number variable, and it's scoped to this function, and it will not affected by any values outside its scope. The advantage of functional programming: the functions can be coded quickly and easily. A general purpose function can be reusable, which leads to rapid software development. We use unit tests is easier because the function do something specific and we can write test easily. Also, debugging is much easier. Example of languages that support the functional programming paradigms like JavaScript or Scala. The last paradigm we have today, database processing approach or database programming paradigm. This programming methodology is based on the data and its movement. Program statements are defined by data rather than a hard coding series of steps. So in these paradigms, we rely on data rather than we rely on a hard coded steps. Let me give you a little description for database. What is database? Database is an organized collection of structured information or data. Typically, it's stored electronically in computer system. A database is usually controlled by database management system, DBMS. The process the data to process the data and queuing them, database uses tables. We store our data in tables. The data can be easily accessed, managed, modified, updated, controlled, and organized. A good database processing approach is critical to any company or any organization because we store all um, all the details about the company or about the project, such as employees records or whatever records in the database tables. Um, the database processing approach is often best used when working with database to structure them, accessing or modifying, updating data on the database. Sometimes we use them for communicating between servers. Advantage of using database processing approach: it's a massive amount of data is handled by the database, unlike spread or other tools. Database are used to store large amount of data. It's easy to update the data manipulation, such as a SQL statement we used to update uh, or to manipulate the data. The conclusion of programming paradigms, programming paradigms in general, it reduces the complexity of programs. Every programming must follow a paradigm approach when implementing their code. Depends on the need and depends on the target, what we want to accomplish. The difference between imperative and the declarative: imperative tells you how to do something, and the declarative tells you what to do. By others say, imperative how to do and the declarative what to do. If you want to getting into deeper, uh, I would see you can start with logic, functional, object oriented, and database paradigms. Um, Also, procedures are not functions. The difference between them is that functions return the value and procedures don't return. Function paradigm designed to have a minimal side effect and always uh, produce the same output when given the same input. But procedures, on the other hand, don't have any return values. If you are a beginner and you find the programming paradigms is something new, I would like to suggest learning object-oriented programming and functional programming first. You have to understand their concepts and try to apply them in your projects. Thank you for watching. Please forward your question to me if you have. And I hope to see you again in the next session.
Thank you a lot, Mustafa, for your